Well, hello there, cowpokes, and welcome to Depraved. I wanted to give the most honest review of this game, and as many of you know, I don't often give reviews on my channel unless I really feel the game deserves it, and people deserve sort of some feedback on what I think, my personal opinion. So, Depraved is a city builder, settlement builder set in the Wild West. And one great thing, if you saw there on the loading screen, I pretty much got to add wild animals, natives, as well as robbers. And there's a lot I want to discuss about that particular aspect of the game that really breathes life into an otherwise pretty typical genre, to be honest. So number one is the fact that robbers can actually have gangs. You can actually have a sheriff eventually in your town. And what this sheriff can do is he can essentially capture robbers and turn them in for a profit. So you can actually arrest robbers. They can have their own gangs, which can be in the periphery of your territory, etc. But pretty much the beginning of the game just requires you to go ahead and pretty much start building a settlement. As you can imagine, there's going to be a number of different resources up on top that you're going to want to get. Now, not all the resources that you get are going to be immediately accessible. It's going to take time, actually, to go ahead and get everything up and running. And in fact, you're only going to unlock buildings as you get some of these resources and as you build and purchase more buildings. So as you can see right now, we're building a lumber mill, we're building a sawmill as well. You need food, you need wood, all that stuff. Another cool aspect of the game, which I think is very important, is the fact that we've got individual characters. So as you can see, if we click these characters, they've each got their own name, they've each got their own occupation, sort of a look to them, and also their needs, etc. Now over here, they don't have any weapons, but as the game progresses, you're going to start to see that you can actually give weapons to your settlers. You can even get famous gunslingers to come and defend your town, which is a pretty cool thing considering all of the bad guys around. In fact, just now in the short time we were talking, a native tribe popped up somewhere on the map. I can't spot them right now, but believe me, we don't want to upset these guys. And just like real natives, once we start purchasing more territory and expanding our base, they get angrier and angrier as we're encroaching on their native land. Now, let's take a look at a finished city, guys, and we'll keep on discussing the world here that we have before us. Now, here's an example of a more finished, more complete city. And this is not by any means the be-all, end-all of a settlement. This is actually sort of a smaller settlement, but you can see things starting to come together. We're actually building a stable over here with some of our men. We've got a few buildings up, and as you can see, we've got special units right here known as gunslingers. These guys will occasionally come to your town, and you can actually purchase them for a fee. They'll stick around, defend the place. Just make sure they've got a place to stay, a place to live. Otherwise, you're going to be none too happy. You're also going to have this trader pass by, and the trading aspect of the game is really quite good. I think it's where the game shines the most. Eventually, you can actually get a railroad and pretty much trade using the railroad, which brings in a lot more profit, of course. Profit can be seen down here in the lower left. Also the amount of money that you have. But to get to that railroad, and this is the scary part, we need to actually purchase more territory, which costs money, which we have to make by selling things at the town hall or capturing bad guys, or also pillaging native lands. And then we can get a railroad. And I'll actually show you one of those areas right now, the area of native lands, because this particular map that I'm playing on is chock full of natives. And at any point we could attack these guys, burn down their teepees. They would no longer be a threat, and we could potentially even get resources off of them. We could also steal all of these horses. And yes, horses definitely have value in this game. Now, another problem we have in this particular map is one you'll find quite often. We have a gang over here of bandits, which have set up camp nearby, but thankfully, as you can see, I've taken care of these suckers. But as you can see, Olaf Bone, cause of death, murder, they're part of the Mayfield brothers. Now, had we captured them, we would have gotten some gold coin in return for it, but I decided to just go ahead and shoot them down. The last order of business is to steal their horses, burn down their camp, and call it a nice, good old day. But I don't have a sheriff's office yet. So I actually have to enact some frontier justice, which pretty much just means shooting the enemy. Now, I think we should get into the negative aspects of the game. I think, quite frankly, if you look at the aesthetics, the graphics, nothing too special. In fact, some people have called it ugly. Personally, for me, it's all about gameplay. I'm not really a guy that puts graphics above everything else, but I do think that there could be some improvements made, which would really, breathe more life, let's say, into the actual game itself. The other issue I have is the speed of the game. You can actually speed up in a fast forward over here, but this is the fastest the game goes. And if you actually know a little bit about Depraved and have spent some time with it, you'll know that it takes quite a while to actually build up a settlement, and I really think that this could be improved by just adding maybe 2 or 3 more speeds to really speed things along. Another thing, and I don't know if everybody's going to see this as a negative, but is the fact that this is a standard resource gathering game, which is kind of reminiscent, at least for me, of Age of Empires. Some people may see it as a little too simplistic, considering the many different kinds of games, settlement games you have today that don't necessarily require you to get the basics of wood, food, etc. Seems to be pretty straightforward, pretty typical and standard, but nonetheless, still has an appeal about it. Apart from games like Age of Empires, of course. Now, over here, I'm actually purchasing metal parts. That's another thing about the game, is you really are going to be forced to use the trade system, because quite frankly, when you start out, you just don't have access to all of the locations you would like to have access to, all of the items you would like to have access to, and you're going to have to barter for them. So if you don't like the trade aspect of the game, yeah, it's not exactly going to shine too bright. Combat is another thing that is a little strange. As you can see, we got 2 gunslingers here, and the way combat works is we pretty much select these guys. We go over here, we know that they have weapons, then we right-click on the enemy, and they will engage the enemy fighters, and, you know, either get shot or kill the enemy or wound them, and eventually capture them. Personally, I have no issues with the combat system, but again, very simplistic, very reminiscent of Age of Empires, like toggling an enemy unit to attack. You hear some gunshots, and then, of course, somebody goes down. So that would be a negative aspect as well. In terms of the actual sense of, I like to call it coziness, but I guess it would be more the sense of community that you feel in this game. It's very similar to a game I used to play called Banished, where you are pretty much banished in this, what seems like a Siberian village, and you essentially have to survive through the winter, etc., against, you know, the weather, things like this. In this game, you not only have to survive against the weather, but also against enemies. So I do think it's a step above, but it definitely has that same feeling of, despite there being a thriving community here, moving around, walking around, they don't really seem to be interacting with each other much, besides the occasional shooting or stabbing, which will occur if the crime rate in your town is high. But I'd like to see some more, you know, community interaction, maybe some people hanging out in front of the saloon talking, maybe a few neighbors sort of like mingling around here. I think series like Tropico does a much better job at that than this, and I think it just makes the game feel more alive. That's the best way I could put it. And that kind of brings us to the last point, which is the seasons. There are seasons in this game: winter, summer, spring, fall, etc. And each season brings its own challenges along with it that you kind of need to prepare for. So I think in a survival situation, that's a really great touch. I guess my final outcome on this game is that it's a canvas, a beautiful canvas, waiting to be filled. It's definitely worth the buy. It's definitely fun to play, but I feel like there's so much more that could be added to this game to make it a 9 out of 10. Right now, I'm going to have to give it a 7 out of 10. Nonetheless, would I recommend a buy? If you like cowboy games, you're going to like this game. If you like survival games or resource management games, you're probably going to enjoy this game too, and I'd recommend a pickup. If those things don't suit you and you're kind of just a typical strategy guy trying to get into a new city builder or something like that, I don't know. I might recommend something different. City Skylines. If you're looking for a cowboy game, geez, you know, I don't know. It's kind of tough to recommend this as just a straightforward cowboy game. It's really much more of a survival genre type thing. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you had fun here. Another cool thing I should mention, which I think is pretty cool, is in this game, the roads build themselves. Essentially, these roads, these paths are created by our people continuously walking in this area. Just a little touch, but I think it's kind of a cool one. And, yeah. Anyway, guys, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment down below, and thank you for watching this review. I hope it was fair. I should also mention here towards the end, this is a perfect time to mention it, that at night, as you can see here, especially if you have a bigger town than this, it actually looks quite beautiful here in Depraved. Alright, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Almost forgot, folks, the best part of this game, without a doubt, is going to be the outhouses. And as you can see, in this particular city, or this settlement, I've built them in a really safe location right next to a river. This is going to work out great for our people, and yes, your people can get sick, but luckily we've got a trusted doctor here in town oh, no, actually, we don't have a doctor, we just have a barber. He's just as good, trust me. Just trust me. Just go in there. Best of luck.